Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art and I teach watercolor, and today we are doing loose autumn leaves. This is a fun project. We're letting loose, we're playing with colors, we're having fun. We have Keenan here working the cameras.
Hello.
And we will be doing this project in 5 steps. So our very first step is we'll be putting in our tree branch. Our second step we'll put in leaves. Our third step we'll put in more leaves.
Oh, plot twist.
Plot twist. Step 4, we are going to get messy, which means I'm just going to take some water and mess up some of our nice leaves because we want it to be messy and loose. And then our very last step is we're just going to do the tiny little attachments to the twigs, like the veins from the leaves. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Just those little details. So that's it, 5 steps. And I'm going to go through supplies now. So we're using water, obviously. And we have around round 2 and around 6 paintbrush. These are our go-to brushes. So if you want to paint with us, I highly suggest investing in these. This is the Let's Make Art Classic rounds. Also Princeton Heritage are great brushes. Either ones will work great, or you can use whatever you have at home. We are using 5 colors. So our very first color is red. Our second color is tangerine. Our third color is deep yellow. Our fourth color is emerald green. And our last color is berry blue. So we got the rainbow going on here.
Serious.
And I wanted us to use all of the colors because our bonus item for this crisp and cozy watercolor box is this color pocket wheel. So I wanted to give you guys a way that you can mix a bunch of different colors, and even though we're staying with more like the fall colors here, we're going to utilize all of these. So I'm excited to show you how to do that. We are using our Let's Make Art watercolor paper. Please make sure you paint on the more textured rough side, and as always, tape down your paper. I use Holbein soft tape. And I'm using a butcher tray. Okay, I'm like, what else?
Where'd the butcher tray go?
It's right here. And then I moved it so you guys can see the water.
Thank you.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll be good to go. And a paper towel.
That's a smart layout.
Paper towel. If you have if you have your cute tea towel, we need to get one of those in here.
We do.
Yeah, why don't we have one?
That's an excellent question.
Keenan, that's your job.
Really?
Well, now it is.
I didn't know. Nobody told me that.
All right. We'll have that for you sometime. Anyways, let's do our oath and then we'll get started. So if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
And I promise to have fun.
Thank you. Okay, so our very first step, we're putting in our branch. So we need to mix brown. Good thing we have so many colors here, right? So the easiest way to mix brown, if you don't actually have the color brown, is to take 2 complementary colors and mix them together. So when you take 2 complementary colors and mix them together, you usually will get a gray or a brown, kind of like a muddy, desaturated color. And then with browns, I just add more warmth to them to make them more brown, because brown is essentially dark orange. So I can start with my red and emerald green.
I would like to make a disclaimer.
What?
This is easier said than done for me.
Okay.
Mixing a brown.
Mixing colors are always easier said than done, always.
Yes.
Okay. And it it comes with practice. It comes with a feel to it, right? So I just did 1 scoop red. So I just like put my brush through the red, swoop, put it over here, did 1 of emerald green, put that together. That looks really good. It's probably a little bit too yellow for me. So I'm gonna just see what happens. I'm gonna add blue to it, but I have a feeling that that's gonna make it more green. So let's just see though. So we got some blue. I'm gonna add that in there. Oh yeah, look how green that is.
Whoa.
Okay, which is not a big deal because then I'm gonna take my red, because red is opposite of green on the color wheel. There we go.
That's a good brown.
That's a good brown. There's our brown.
Wow.
Voila. You can also go about doing it where you take your tangerine and blue and mix that together, because blue and orange are opposite on the color wheel. And another way that you can go is you can actually off to the side mix together red and blue to see if you get a purple, and then mix that purple with the yellow, and you can also get a brown that way. Okay? So there's many different ways that you can go about color mixing to get a color, and each ones will have slight variations because they're different colors that you're mixing, but essentially they'll all read as brown. Okay, so I have my 6, I have my brown. Now when you do this branch, I'm going to start on the upper right hand side. I'm just going to bring it down, and then usually when it comes to branches, the closer it is to the trunk, the thicker it is. So I'm going to start, my branch is going to start like thick and then thin out, and then the little like pieces that come off of that are always like the same thickness or thinner as it goes on. Okay?
Okay.
So, and we're going to cover most of this with leaves anyway, so don't stress if it gets a little wonky. Like it exists somewhere in nature. So I'm just going to, okay. And see, like, it's not perfectly straight. It's a little wobbly. There are little knots in it. That's okay.
That'd be a good walking stick.
Yeah. And then, like, just do different ones coming off. So here's one. And then this one is going to keep going this way.
That looks cool.
So just, like, don't get too caught up in this idea that this branch needs to be like perfect, or it doesn't.
Almost looks like the paper's cracked.
It does. It really does, actually. And there's no outline with this, which means like you guys can totally make this branch look however you want. Like even if I'm doing it from the right hand side coming down, maybe you want to like turn your paper and do it like a totally different orientation. You know what I mean? Like you guys have permission to make this yours. But just kind of keep in mind that wherever your twigs are or your branches or whatever, that's where the majority of your leaves will be also. So like looking at this, I feel like I'll have a big gap right here. So I'm gonna just make a branch come off this side, like so.
I feel like that also makes it a nice possibility for being okay with more gappy branches, because then you have leaves to fill in those spaces.
Yeah, totally. Okay, and then maybe like there needs to be a little guy coming in over here. That feels pretty good. Maybe this needs to be a little bit longer. Because now what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the composition on my paper. So if you keep your branch basically just on like the right hand side a small amount, then that's where the majority of your painting is going to stay. So I'm trying to like visualize, am I really utilizing the full page? If I'm not, then maybe I just need to make sure my branches go out a little bit more. So I'm gonna add one coming out this way, maybe one going this way. And that will just remind me when I'm putting in my leaves, utilize this space. Take full advantage of it. And also you can always add branches after you do your leaves. Like if you're halfway through your painting and you're just like, I'm only using like this much space, add more branches. It's not a big deal.
I need another branch.
Yeah. Okay. Now we're moving on to step 2. We're going to do leaves. I'm still using my round 6 for this. And this is where it gets kind of fun, because I want you guys to really utilize all of these different colors, and I want you to use different values when you're painting. What do I mean by that? Value is the lightness or darkness of a color, and that is determined by how much water you have in your paint and water ratio. Okay, so if you want a lighter value, you need to make sure that you have a higher water amount than paint amount. Medium value, it's kind of even. Darker value, you're gonna have more paint and less water. So I'm gonna take my 6, hit it off the side of the cup so it's not dripping. Very rarely do we put a dripping brush onto a paper. And then I'm just gonna grab, like, let's mix a little bit of yellow and a little bit of orange, okay? And then I'm just going to paint a leaf.
Ooh, that's a pretty color.
Okay. And then also, like, while it's still wet, if you want to drop in strong color, you can. And then what I like to do is, like, going off of this yellow, I can grab a little bit of green. Let's see what happens when we throw green in there. Okay, that looks pretty cool. There's green. Okay, what happens if we add some red to this? So you see how I'm getting all these different colors?
Yes.
But right now, these are all very similar in value. So what I can do is I'll just, leaving the color on my brush, dip it in the water a couple times, hit it off the side, and now I have a lighter value orange. Okay? So now I'm gonna do green, and I'm gonna add a little blue to my green, just to, like, warm it, not warm it, cool it off a little bit, and make it like a deeper green. Okay, maybe add some more yellow into it. So, like, as you can see here, I'm not being too careful when it comes to the colors that I'm mixing and adding and dropping in, when it comes to placement. I'm really just going, and I kind of want to work quickly. I feel like the benefit of working quickly is, like, you're not overthinking it. You're just going. And with a project like this, you can get away with that because there's so much going on. There's so many different colors. Remember to dip your paintbrush to get lighter values. And sometimes what I like to do is I'll, like, play a little game. Like, how many times can I dip my paintbrush and paint with that color until it totally disappears?
Ooh, that is fun.
Okay, and I'm noticing something that I'm doing, and I'm going to call it out right now, which is I'm not really letting my leaves touch each other very much. They feel very separated, like meh, 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 meh. Where in actuality, when you're looking at leaves on a tree, they overlap because there's layers and layers and layers of branches and leaves, and they're going everywhere. So I'm noticing that I'm kind of, like, keeping them evenly spaced and separated out. So what you can do when you notice that is just be like, I'm going to purposely overlap some of these leaves. And you can do it while they're still wet because you're going to get some gorgeous, gorgeous colors. I think I said gorgeous.
It was gorgeous.
But, like, even the green can overlap with the yellow. Like, the worst thing that can happen if you're letting these colors mix and overlap, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to get brown. But that's not bad because these are fall leaves, and the leaves can be yellow or orange or red or green or brown. So, like, you're good to go, you know?
Facts. You've mentioned brushes a couple times that spark a question for me.
Okay.
Because you mentioned the different types of brushes they could use are Let's Make Art and the Princeton Heritage.
Yeah.
And then you also mentioned how much water on the brush. Mm-hmm. Depending on what brush you have, are some of them more or less thirsty?
Yes. Yes, that's a great question, Keenan. So, the thirstiness of the brush actually depends on a couple of things. It depends on the type of brush it is and also what that brush is made out of. So for our Let's Make Art or our Princeton Heritage series, these are synthetic hair, and they have a strong snap. And what I mean by snap is, like, if I were to bend the bristles back and let it go, it snaps right back into place. Okay, it's like held taut a little bit. Where there are brushes that, like a quill brush or a mop brush or even some round brushes, where if you push them off to the side, they stay to the side. They don't snap back. And I'm saying that because I've noticed that with, like, some like mop brushes and quill brushes, they hold a ton of water, like a ton of water. And so you can keep going with that same brush for a very, very long time.
Interesting.
Where like a liner brush, do I have an example of a liner? Probably not right here. A liner brush is long, skinny bristles, long and skinny. So it can hold water, but not a ton of water because there's not like this full belly. Same thing with like tiny brushes, like around 1 or 0.1, that kind of thing. So yes, depending on the type of the brush, the make of the brush, and what that brush is used for, they will hold different waters.
Okay.
Okay?
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That was a great question.
Our beginner series mentions different types of brushes too.
Yeah, I think in the beginner series I kind of go over that type of brush and what you can kind of expect. So I'm noticing here as I'm kind of playing that I have a good amount of medium values and light values, but I'm going to drop in some extra color here and there for some darker values too. So, you know, play. Oh, that's a nice brown leaf. So I'm just kind of rinsing my brush, picking up a color. If you want to keep going with that same color and lighter value, you can. If you want to switch it up, you can. Let these leaves run into each other. Let them blend.
I was just going to say that's my favorite part right now. How they're just blending in with one another.
They're just... And that's also the benefit of working quickly, is because if you work fairly quickly, then the colors run together easier. Look at the angles these leaves are coming off the stems. Like, you don't have to all have the leaves going the same way. You know what I mean? Like, some are going to angle to the left, some are going to angle to the right, some are going to go, you know, like play with that a little bit.
It could be a lot of fun to play with even whether a leaf is bent or not.
Yeah.
You know?
And like, it's possible too, like maybe this leaf is on its side, and that's why it's thinner. You know, like.
That's what I'm thinking.
So the things that we're kind of like trying to be aware of and play with, we want to be aware of color, we want to be aware of value, and you want to be aware of the actual shape. And you want to have variation within all of those. I feel like I need more orange. And you can see that all my colors are kind of just blending together, and I really don't mind that because I feel like that lends itself to this project.
Totally. Like pre-built leaf colors.
Yeah. And of course you can always drop in when it's still wet, use that wet on wet technique. Let's grab some yellow. And now it's at this point that what you can do also is you can rinse your brush totally, and using just water, pull color from what's already down and make new leaves with it. So using just water, I'm going to go in between these two leaves and make another leaf. Using just water, I'm going to add a leaf here. Using just water, I'm going to add another leaf here. And that's how you get those barely there leaves. And even if it's dried for a bit, you still should be able to pull a little bit of color off of it.
It looks like you have a squirrel on your palette.
Oh my gosh. It really does.
Which is so fitting.
That is so fitting.
Because squirrels like to paint.
They mostly stay on the ground. The other nice thing about projects like this, where there's so many of them, is I know that like we sometimes get caught up in like the shape aspect of what it is that we're painting. You know, like some people really don't like how they paint leaves. And when there's just one or two, I feel like it's easy to call attention to like wonky shapes when there's just a few of them. But when there's so many of them, it actually doesn't really matter what shape your leaves are. Like, they're gonna read as leaves, you know? And so like, I always feel like projects like this give me so much freedom because I don't feel I don't feel the pressure to have to make these like gorgeous, perfect shaped, formed leaves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I can just paint and have fun.
Get messy with it.
Get messy with it, absolutely. Okay. And it's at this point, we're still doing step 2, 3, but I also want to start introducing step 4, which is get messy. So when it's wet like this, I'm going to, and you can see here on the reference photo, I kind of dragged some of the color off to the edge right here. Do you see that?
Yes.
And I did that a little bit over here and over here. And that's because I wanted it to feel layered. I wanted it to feel like this is not just exactly 10 leaves. This is layers and layers of leaves, but I don't want to have to paint all those leaves. I want you to get the idea of the fullness. So sometimes what I do to like help me make it feel more full is I take water and I just kind of like
literally mess it up.
Literally mess it up.
Oh my goodness.
Just spread whatever color you grab. And when you do that, you might lose some of the shape. That's okay. And if you want to do it across this whole thing, you totally can. I just did it like here and there. Already though, doesn't that seem
more full?
More full?
Yeah.
Yeah. I do this with like floral bouquets. I do this when I'm doing landscapes, like really messing things up and letting it be other colors in the background besides just white really adds to that feeling of layers. And don't forget in between here too. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Isn't that fun?
Yes.
All right, let's just keep on going. So I'm gonna do, I feel like as this tutorial has increased, I've just been adding more and more things to like pay attention to. So let's start from the beginning. We're paying attention to the colors and making sure that we have a good mix of different colors going on. The second thing we're paying attention to are our values. We want light leaves, we want dark leaves, we want medium leaves. The third thing that we're paying attention to is the size of our leaves, the actual form. Some are thin, some are thick, some are long. You can even do some that are nice and short. There are baby leaves, like they're brand new leaves, you know? And then now we're paying attention to the messiness aspect. So as I'm adding in more and more leaves, every so often I'm gonna go in with some water and mess it up. Now, here's the tricky thing with messing things up though. With watercolor, the faster you mess things up, the easier that color will move. If you let things dry a long time, the color will still move, but that initial leaf will keep its shape a little bit better. So if you're looking, like, look at the top where I came and messed these up. Most of these you can still tell are leaves. They kept their shape because they dried longer. These ones down here that were relatively fresh when I did mess it up, kind of lost their shape. I'm not saying one is bad and one is good. I just want to give you that information so you can utilize it. So if you are messing your stuff up and you're just like, this is now just an even multicolored wash and you can't even tell that these are leaves, maybe let your leaves dry a little bit before you try and mess them up.
Cool. I like the idea of looking at these and where some of them are really like focused and some are really blurry. I think of if you're looking outside of a window and it's raining and you see raindrops and it's blurry on one side,
Yeah, and it's
clear
like
on the other.
smearing it and I always love painting projects that I feel like match with, like right now it's literally raining. We can hear it outside. And doesn't this just feel
cozy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Feels cozy. We're getting that first crispiness of fall when it's just starting. You feel it at night, that chill in the air.
The perfect weather right before the winter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And I love painting things that kind of match how I'm feeling outside and maybe even inside, you know, and I meant inside internally. Mm-hmm. But, and then you can like, you know, just hang this up on your mantle.
Question.
Yeah.
Could you, in a box with a fox, put a background on this? And would it change the whole look? Or would it be, you know what I mean? Because like, I think of the paper, it's so bright. That's why I love the leaves, because they're so vibrant. Mm-hmm. But if you put a background, would that change the whole?
Yes. So, well, there's two different ways that you can do it, because you can do a background that covers the entire white paper and then paint the leaves on top. You can do that. Two things will happen. One, it will feel more full because you won't have any white spaces, so it'd be kind of like this messy thing on the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But the second thing that will happen is your colors will not seem as vibrant, because watercolors are transparent, and what makes them vibrant is the white of the paper behind it. How much white of that paper you can see is what allows for that vibrancy. And so if you were to color and do a light wash across the entire thing, let that dry, paint on top of it, you will be able to see the leaves, but it will be a little bit harder to get the value variation and also that vibrant of color. The other thing that you can do is try and paint around the leaves so the leaves can still stay vibrant, but there's no white spaces. You can do it that way. And this is, for me personally, and I think this might even just be a stylistic preference, is like, I know that sometimes people get bothered by it, but I love the contrast of the crisp white paper against bright colors, because I feel like it makes them pop. So I love having mostly white backgrounds because I feel like it puts this subject like in your face. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, I am leaves and I am here.
I am leaves and leave me here.
Where like when you do backgrounds, I think it's really easy for your values to, instead of being spread across the spectrum of white to really dark, your values tend to do this. And so then when they do this, there's not as much form.
Makes sense.
But that I'm acknowledging that's probably more like just my stylistic preferences. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to style, and this right here is the beautiful thing about art, and why I will love it forever and ever, is you do not have to agree with me. I am not right. And to you, I could be wrong. And that's amazing. Like, that's a beautiful thing. You are the artist creating this world. You get to make up the rules. You get to make the decisions, and no one can tell you that it is bad. Like, if that is your goal, if that's what you're going for, where it's just like, yeah, my goal is to paint backgrounds for all of my paintings. That's my goal. You did it. Like,
nailed it.
You nailed it. And I don't know, maybe that's
a great analogy.
I just feel like there's something so freeing about not having to, I don't know, having the freedom to say, I wanted it that way just because I wanted it that way. And that is good enough. Like, oh gosh, I love it. I feel like I used to do that in my art classes. When I was in college, we would do critiques. So you create a project and then you talk about it in front of the class, try and tell them what it is that you're going for, what you're hoping to achieve, why they should care about it, which is kind of like a scary thing in general, like going in front of your class and being like, I poured my heart and soul into this. This is why you should care about it. And they can be like, no, I don't care. Or like, yeah, good job.
Who's next?
They can. But the wonderful thing is that it's all with the intention to improve. It's a really wonderful exercise in not being able to place your value in one painting. And it's a wonderful exercise in assuming positive intent. I know that my classmates, when they're telling me of things that I can do to be better, it is not to make me feel bad about myself. It is simply for the purpose of improving my skill, my talent, and my purpose. And that's actually really freeing to be in a community and a place where you know that people aren't out to like get you. You know what I mean? Like they're really only there just trying to help you. And but it would be funny because we'd be doing critiques and I would just be like, they'd be like, why'd you do this there? And I would be like, because I wanted to. But sometimes that would work and sometimes that wouldn't. You know what I mean? Because they would be like, why?
Expound.
Yeah, expound. So I could be like, well, I did those really rough brush textures there because I wanted it to feel uncomfortable. I wanted you guys to see the texture of it. I wanted it to feel rough. I wanted to communicate that emotional aspect. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it helps you go a little bit deeper than just because I wanted it to. Where like these colors, I'm staying with this multicolored thing because I want to communicate not just leaves turning on one tree. I'm trying to communicate the entire rainbow of fall that you see as you're driving down the road and you're seeing 8 different trees with 8 different colors. I'm doing that all in one painting. And so like me saying, I'm using the rainbow of colors because I want to, I can get away with that. But then go further underneath that. Well, why? Why are you trying to communicate that? What's important to you for that? And for me, the importance is I'm trying to communicate the feeling of fall in one painting, you know?
Yep, I like that.
And art can do that. It's so magical. Okay, so I finished my leaves. I feel good. The top feels more messy than the bottom, so I'm just gonna go in with my paintbrush and kind of let it be a little bit more messy. Kind of start filling in some areas that seem a little bit bare. And I'm not saying you can't have any white spaces and you can't have any areas that are too empty. Just pay attention to where it feels a little bit off balance. The other thing that you can do here that I did a little bit on my reference is I did some splatters, like I did drips. Can you guys tell from these textures? So you can just like, and I didn't go crazy. I'm going a little bit more crazy here than I did in my reference photo, but like I'm really feeling it, so I'm just gonna go for it. And you can do just water splatters too. It doesn't have to be
This is a moment
paint.
of because you wanted to.
Yeah, because it feels right. Okay, that feels really good. And then this is also a great opportunity if your painting is dry enough. If like when we were getting really messy and we let things like bleed out too much, that you lost your leaf form, now is a great opportunity if you just wanted to like sharpen up some of those shapes. You always have that right. You just want to make sure that your painting is actually dry. So I'm gonna like, for example, I'm gonna go in and just kind of like reshape this. There's a leaf. But if it's wet, that color will just like bleed out, and so then it's kind of pointless to reshape it. So you want to make sure that your painting is dry in whatever areas that you're trying to add leaves in. And again, this step is totally, as many things that we teach here, this is optional. If you like where your painting is at right now and you don't think it's necessary to sharpen or add or adjust, don't do it. This is your painting. Look at my palette.
I know, it's alive.
It's so beautiful.
I I feel like you have a couple little dragons on there. The green, red, and pink are different,
Yeah.
different dragons.
I could see that. I could totally see that. That feels good. That feels good.
Mm-hmm.
This is pretty cool. And I'm actually gonna let this get a little bit messy down here. Now let's say you decide to let something get messy and you're adding water to this and it's just like darker than you want it to be. You can, like right now, I can take my paper towel and while it's wet, I can lift. And that won't erase it, but it will lighten it. You know what I mean? I'm just teaching you guys that you can, if you put something down and it's too dark, if you work pretty quickly, you can lift.
I was trying to think of a good phrase for it. I always think of the bend and snap.
The
press and lift.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Press and lift.
Yeah.
But don't rub, because you will degrade your paper if you like try and scrub it off. There are some watercolor papers that you can scrub and it does not hurt the paper. Usually they have to be a little bit thicker and like 100% cotton, like a little bit more sturdy. This is a wood pulp paper, which I think works well with liquid watercolors, but because of that, if you scrub, it will start to rub the paper off.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you just lift. You just kind of like when you're blotting, like cleaning a rug. You know, you're not supposed to scrub a rug, you're supposed to blot.
I don't do that. If the rug's ruined, the rug's ruined.
Okay, so now we're going into our very last step. And this is where I'm going to switch to my 2. And that's because I'm just going to do thin lines that are connecting my leaves to my branches. Again, you want to make sure that your painting is mostly dry at this point because we want those lines to stay sharp. And I'm going to mix brown, and I want it to be a decent dark brown. So I'm going to grab some blue. Like sometimes what I do that just like never fails is just mix all the colors together too. So like I got blue, I got like orange yellow, I got red. Let's see where we're at with that. Ooh, that's a good brown.
That's like a dark chocolate brown.
Yeah, I
like
really
that.
like that. I actually, do you know what I'm gonna do?
What? This
was not in my original painting, but this could be a cool thing to show you guys, is like if I wanna use this for my little veins, a problem that could occur is this is a very different brown than what we painted our initial tree branch with. So what I can do if I still want to use this brown is actually go into the tree branch that's there.
Oh.
And I'm not painting over it, I'm kind of just painting off the side as if it's like a shadow or something. And it's not across the entire thing, it's just here and there.
Whoa.
I'm introducing this color. So then when I use it, it doesn't feel out of left field because it's like already there, you know? But I don't have to repaint the whole thing. Just a little here or there. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is on leaves that I know are dry, I'm just gonna do a thin line a little bit into the leaf that connects to a branch. So like this one, then leaf. And I'm not going to do it on all of them because one, I don't even know what's going on in some of these leaves. Like I'm like, where do you end and where do you begin? I don't even know.
How did you grow that?
Well, why are you here?
You grew out of a leaf?
So I'm just going to do it on some. Ooh, there's a good example. That just bled out. So that leaf was not dry enough.
That was that leaf you reshaped.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
I
like,
remember that one.
just do it here and there on some of these. Maybe you have like a bunch of floating leaves and you just kind of want to figure out how to connect them back. But don't get too caught up in it. Don't get too like, oh, does this come from this area? Where is this leading? Let's not ask those questions, you know?
Those are the falling leaves. That's what it is. This is a picture.
Yes.
This is a still photo painting that you created. That's why there are leaves that don't make sense.
There we go. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Should we take off our tape?
Yes.
Okay. So I still have some wet water droplets on the side. Now for you guys at home, I try, let me start over. Every time I paint on watercolor paper, it warps. It just does, because it's water on paper. So what I try and do to counteract that warping is I always tape my paper down, whether I'm using this paper or I'm using like 100% cotton paper, you know, like arches, like I still always tape my paper down. And I let it stay taped on the table or board or whatever I painted on for at least 24 hours. If I let it dry for 24 to 48 hours before I untape it, it has a much higher chance of that paper actually drying flat. Because even though to the touch it could feel dry, there's still moisture in there. And so if you untape too soon, like I just do the untaping for the video so you guys can see how satisfying it is. But like for you guys, don't untape it right away because it will warp and be crinkly, and that's just the way it is. I will say that if I'm painting on a pad, I sometimes don't feel like I need to untape it because like when I painted, there's probably a lot of tutorials where I'm painting on a Canson pad, and because one side is glued down attached to that pad, I felt like that was enough like structure to keep it straight. But whenever you're doing single sheets, you're gonna want to tape that baby down.
Tape it.
Now there is, people have asked me about stretching. Stretching is when you prep your paper by getting it wet before you paint on it. That takes out the starch of the paper, and I heard that that helps with paper warping. I've tried it. My paper still warps after, so I don't know if I'm doing it wrong. I gotta figure that out.
Interesting.
Look at this clean, gorgeous edge.
Disgusting.
Beautiful.
That's what it is.
It's so beautiful.
Wow.
I'm so in love with this painting. This was so fun. Okay, I hope you guys let yourself let loose with these loose autumn leaves. I hope you played. I hope you made it messy and, you know, had fun.
Yeah.
That's the point.
That's why we're here.
That is why we are here, my friends. So, can't wait to see what you come up with. Also, you can reconstitute this project into every season, and then you can have like 4 seasons on your wall all the time. You know what I mean? Like put some blossoms in there for spring.
Then you can
deep
tell
greens
people
for
that
summer.
you're just going to go to the 4 seasons for the weekend. I'm just going to head out for the week and go to 4 seasons. Just be alone on your couch. Perfect.
Genius, Keenan. Genius. Okay, so if you're on Instagram, tag us in it. We love seeing what you guys create. That's at Let's Go Make Art. If you're on Facebook, you can join our watercolor community. That's called Let's Make Art Watercolor. And the whole purpose of that is to connect with each other, to be in a safe place where you can share your work, because it is extremely scary putting yourself out there, posting your paintings, especially in the beginning. Like, so in the beginning, it's so hard. But let's get rid of this idea that skill and art is a talent that you're born with or you're not. It's not true. Those cases are rare. They don't exist. For the most part, for all of us, it's time and putting practice in and showing up and allowing ourselves to be bad until we're good, and then until we're really good. And that's just how it goes. So let's celebrate every stage. Of course, when you start, you're gonna be kind of bad. It's a new thing, it's a skill. You're still understanding like what everything is. So am I. People ask me questions, I'm like, I I don't know.
Paper stretching was a good example.
Yeah.
Got to
like,
figure it out still.
I'm still trying to figure out, and I think why I love this so much is we're on this journey together. I have learned so much now than when I started teaching 3 years ago, teaching you guys how to paint. I've learned so much about materials. I've learned so much about processes and layers and all of these things. So, and I love sharing that with you. So give yourself the grace to be okay with having things not be like perfect or amazing, because it never is. And then just like do it because you love it. Lift other people up if they're struggling. Share what you're working on. Do words of encouragement. If they ask for feedback, give constructive feedback. Like, this is a space for you guys to have your own form of like art class, pretty much.
Totally.
You know, we're just trying to help each other. We're supporting each other. Because when you have someone with you, it's easier to do hard things. And that's what we want to be for you. So that's on Facebook, Let's Make Art Watercolor. If you need any of these supplies, you can find them at letsmakeart.com. Keenan, always a pleasure.
.com.
I'll see you guys later. Bye.